This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidoyo. It's Monday, June 3rd. This is Africa 54. At least 9 people were killed as Sudan's military storms a Khartoum sit-in. Congolese forces confirmed killing 26 rebels last Thursday, believed to be linked to the Islamic State terrorist group. And Muslim Americans run for charity during the Ramadan fast. The Democratic Republic of Congo's army says it has killed 26 rebels from a group believed to have links to Islamic State. Neka Chile reports.
Congolese forces have killed 26 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo's East Ebola zone. Thought to be linked to the Islamic State group, the army said it shot dead the insurgents while repelling an attack on a village near the city of Beni. The area is the epicenter of Congo's worst ever Ebola epidemic, which has killed close to 1,300 people since last August. Local residents gathered to watch the bodies of rebels from the Allied Democratic Forces being taken away.
I have seen the bodies of the real ADF rebels. They are not our brothers. We have seen them with our own eyes, so we are happy. Because we have lost our mothers, children, and also the fact that my younger brother was slaughtered. And up until now, we still have no idea where his body is or was buried.
We have seen Somalis there, Rwandans are also there, Ugandans are also there. And we asked the President of the Republic to continue with the work he is doing so that we can be helped. There is no other way we can be helped, and we are in need of peace.
The ADF, originally Ugandan Salafist-inspired extremist group, has been operating along the Congo-Uganda border for more than 2 decades. While it's never claimed allegiance to the Islamic State, witnesses said the group carried out an attack in a nearby town last month, which was then claimed by IS.
That was Neka Chile of Reuters reporting. A sit-in in the Sudanese capital turned deadly on Monday when at least 9 people were shot and killed in Khartoum as Sudanese security forces attempted to disperse the protest outside the defense ministry. A medical association affiliated with the protesters says several people were also injured as government troops tried to break up the demonstration. The U.S. Embassy in Khartoum tweeted that the attacks on protesters must stop. The sit-in started several weeks ago as civilian and military officials argue over the makeup of a transitional government following the military's overthrow of Omar al-Bashir in April after mass protests against the 30-year rule. The demonstrators are demanding the military hand over power to a civilian administration. Now, for more perspective on the ongoing political crisis in Sudan, journalist Jason Patinkin joins me live via Skype from Khartoum. Good evening, Jason, and welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, Jason, this breakup today and the ongoing crisis, the killing, may intimidate some, but I'm just wondering what kind of pressure does the protesters, the coalition of protesters need or can put in against the military council to change things that we are beginning to see unfold in Khartoum?
Well, there is now a big uphill battle for the pro-democracy protesters. This was unprecedented, this raid, this attack on the sit-in. Footage has shown tents burned, stages burned, and that's certain to demoralize many people because the sit-in really was the center, the heartbeat of this revolution. So with that potentially gone, the protesters will have to find another way to mobilize. They have used a strike last week, which was quite successful in showing the military council that the people of Sudan were firmly in favor of civilian rule and did not want continuation of military rule. So they may have the option of continuing strikes. They have said that they want to carry out further civil disobedience, and that could mean people not going to work, people going to work but refusing to do their jobs. It could mean, the public sector, civil servants not carrying out their duties. Already today, flights were canceled in and out of Khartoum as pilots basically went on strike in protest of the violence this morning.
Now,
so
Jason,
the protest leaders still have the streets. Yeah.
There are reports also of foreign influence on the military council. What are you hearing?
Absolutely, and the big influence comes from the Gulf states, specifically the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, as well as Egypt to the north of Sudan. And those three countries have been very clear about their support for the military council. They pledged, I believe, $3 billion to the military council, and some of that money has already arrived. The top leaders, basically the presidents and the vice presidents of Sudan, have both gone and visited those leaders. So there's a lot of support coming from these powerful Gulf allies who, as we see from their involvements in the war in Yemen or the crackdown on pro-democracy protesters in Egypt, really have no qualms about shedding blood to get the political to achieve the political goals that they have.
Maybe 20 seconds, Jason. The U.S. has weighed in the embassy in Khartoum. Is the U.S. is it in a position really to mediate either side?
No, the U.S. has really not seized this opportunity presented by these unprecedented protests to play a significant role and to influence events. The Charge d'Affaires here has made few comments.
Right.
He's met with
Jason.
Leaders of the military council, so there's very little that the U.S. can do at this point.
Thank you, Jason. Jason Patinkin is a journalist speaking with us live via Skype from Khartoum. Zimbabwe's economy is struggling and more businesses are refusing to accept local currency, taking only U.S. dollars, says Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare. Even some government agencies have started charging for services in American currency.
Zimbabwean businesses like this car parts store are refusing to take local currency, which continues to lose value in a struggling economy. Instead, they are accepting only US dollars in a bid to shield themselves from soaring inflation. Many products in Zimbabwe are imported and business need the foreign currency to restock. But Zimbabwe's currency, known as bond notes, are not accepted outside the country. This store owner wants President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government to formally abandon local currency for the US dollars.
Our wish is that goods be sold in US dollars only, as that is what we only use when we go to places like Dubai, not bond notes, to restock, to sustain businesses.
Even some Zimbabwe government departments have started asking for payment in US dollars as part of efforts to protect themselves against the depreciating bond notes. Zimbabwe initially abandoned its dollar more than a decade ago when hyperinflation made it worthless. Now the bond notes introduced 2 years ago are also depreciating in value. South African rand and British pounds are also acceptable, but very hard to find. Meanwhile, fuel remains scarce in Zimbabwe as Mnangagwa's government continues to control its price. Some companies have resorted to selling it in US dollars only. Zimbabwe's Energy Regulatory Authority says it is only allowing companies that have directly imported the fuel to trade in US dollars, as the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe pays foreign currency for most fuel imports in the country.
We require documentation. If you have procured it through Reserve Bank, obviously you fail to produce documentation to us, and we'll then take the necessary measures.
Earlier this week, Zimbabwe's energy minister said some gas stations are being stripped of their licenses for trading in US dollars when they were supposed to accept local currency. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
A non-Muslim high school teacher in the U.S. state of Minnesota is fasting during the high holy month of Ramadan to show support for his Muslim students. Abdulaziz Osman has the story.
At Wellstone International High School in Minneapolis, where 40% of the students are Somali Americans, a non-Muslim teacher is fasting for the month of Ramadan to show solidarity with his Muslim students. Social studies teacher Douglas Butler says he decided to fast in an effort to develop a strong bond with students.
One, I get to understand what my students are going through, and I can kind of form that connection, create that stronger bond, which I think is really important. And also, I get to learn about what does it mean, what does it feel like, what does it take?
For a non-Muslim, fasting and observing Ramadan can be quite challenging. For Butler, who lives with his partner, he says one of his challenges is not eating when he cooks for his girlfriend.
I have a partner, but she's not fasting, so it's not easy. So I have to, I cook food, and then she'll be eating, and I have to wait. I'll nope, I'm not going to eat yet. I'll wait until the iftar. And so, but at the end of the day, I do it for the student.
As the sun goes down, Butler and others are breaking their fast together by eating dates and drinking water. Butler said going without fluid all day was the hardest part.
For me, one of the hardest things is that I'm tired and that I can't drink coffee. So I come to school and I'm just like, that I think that may be the hardest part for me.
Butler's students respect his decision to fast, saying they are grateful for his participation.
He is a non-Muslim and he's fasting, teaching and helping me with everything I need. I'm so happy and thrilled.
The Muslim fasting month culminates with the Eid al-Fitr celebration. The aim of the celebration is to promote peace and bring yourself back to the normal course of life after the long month of self-restraint and religious devotion. Abdulaziz Osman, VOA News.
The U.S. State Department will now require almost all applicants for U.S. visas to submit social media, email, and telephone information. The new rules require people applying for immigrant and non-immigrant visas to list all social media usernames, email addresses, and telephone numbers used in the past 5 years. U.S. officials say the requirements would affect nearly 15 million foreigners. Only applicants for diplomatic and official visas could be exempt from the new rules. Visa applicants will also be asked if any family members have been involved in terrorist activities. The new rules were first proposed in March of 2018. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, running for charity during Ramadan.
We're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa,
around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower,
and change the rules.
It's time for Our Voices
with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Silk production has steadily declined in recent years in countries where it was originally produced, like China and Japan. Now Kenya is emerging as a new silk-producing country due to its favorable climate conditions. Silkworms need mulberry trees to survive. These trees are also drought-tolerant and resistant to cold, so they can survive well in many parts of Kenya. Apart from textile and fabrics, silk has many uses, including in the manufacture of contact lenses, films, soaps, skin products, and toothpaste. In 2018, the world's largest silk producer, Guangdong Silktex Group, announced plans to create a silk processing factory and silk farm in Kenya. If successful, the venture is expected to create more than 300,000 jobs. Next up, Australian researcher James Watts says he's invented a device that lets beekeepers harvest venom without damaging the insects. Watts says electrified mats placed on the floor of hives stressed the bees and caused casualties. But his device is placed outside the hive and tricks bees into thinking they're under threat. Guard bees then swarm on the collector, which emits a mild electric pulse. The venom is then scraped off and sells for about $83 per gram. Bee venom is used for all kinds of products, including cosmetics and pharmacology. It's also used in dementia research. And finally, Tina Knowles-Larson, the mother of music superstar Beyoncé, hosted a Lion King-themed charity art gala last weekend. The third annual Wearable Art Gala in Santa Monica, California, celebrated African-American artists, culture, and tradition, and featured an auction of fine art pieces to raise money for artistic mentorship programs. The specific theme for the evening was a journey to the Pride Lands, based on the upcoming Disney film The Lion King, which stars Beyoncé as the lioness Nala. The guests interpreted the theme with colorful feathers, robes, and elaborate headdresses. And that's what's trending today.
U.S. President Donald Trump is in Britain Monday on a state visit. The engagement includes meeting with the royal family, a state dinner, and talks with outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May. After arriving in London earlier in the day, the President and First Lady Melania Trump flew from the U.S. ambassador's residence to the grounds of Buckingham Palace via helicopter, where they were greeted by Prince Charles and his wife Camilla Parker Bowles as cannoneers fired a 41-gun salute. Trump and the First Lady were welcomed by Queen Elizabeth on the portico of the palace. A short time later, an honor guard stood attention while an army band played the U.S. national anthem for the visiting president, who then inspected the troops along with Prince Charles. Following the ceremony, the president and First family entered the palace for lunch with the royals. Trump's visit comes amid political turmoil in Britain. Prime Minister May announced last month she would be resigning after failing to complete Britain's exit from the European Union. Trump has publicly backed former Foreign Minister Boris Johnson. Now, the so-called special relationship between the United States and Britain is being watched closely during President Trump's state visit amid his statements on British politics. How do the Brits feel about their relations with Americans? VOA White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara reports from London.
London is gearing up for U.S. President Donald Trump's state visit beginning June 3rd. He's a controversial figure here. Polls show that the majority of the British public disapprove of him.
I think everything about him is awful. It really is. Yeah. He does, and he lies as well. He's very naughty.
Like, how can a president that kind of behaves in the way he does and says the kind of things that he does, like, be allowed into politics? It's just, I think it's ridiculous.
It's quite important that he does come here for US and UK relations, but due to the simple fact that America and the UK have such a great relationship.
Trump has drawn rebuke when he retweeted anti-Muslim videos from a British far-right group and when he accused British intelligence agencies of spying on his election campaign. Still, British officials maintain that the two countries' special relationship remain intact. Polls also show the underlying cultural closeness between the two countries is strong.
I'm not sure whether it's as strong, but yes, I do feel that it's still there.
If the general population want it, then it will still be there, regardless of who's in power, really.
It's one of the few relationships in the world history that won't really ever go away, because we've gone through the dark times and we've gone through the best of times.
The special relationship is a term coined after World War II by then British Prime Minister Winston Churchill to describe the close political, cultural, economic, military and historic bilateral ties.
Which really has been one of the most important successful relationships in history, going back really to the end of the 19th century. The U.S. and the U.K. have to some extent been bound at the hip ever since.
The closeness is sometimes reflected by the leaders, including Reagan and Thatcher, Bush and Blair, Obama and Cameron at certain times of their terms. It's a different story for Trump and Prime Minister Theresa May, especially after he publicly criticized her handling of Britain's exit from the European Union. But it's not just about the leaders.
It's more about the deeply buried relationship between the intelligence services, between the security services, the integration of the militaries, the British students studying in American universities, American film studios collaborating with British film studios and actors. Those kinds of things are the core of the special relationship.
Just like in Trump's 2018 visit, massive protests are planned, with organizers saying they expect tens of thousands to attend.
Other American presidents have also faced a rather chilly British reception. After placing nuclear missiles at military bases here, Ronald Reagan faced massive protests in 1982, as did George W. Bush after the 2003 Iraq invasion. So, like any other relationships, it too faces its ups and downs. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, London.
It's time for a Monday Sports Report, and joining us now is Sunday Shomari to tell us all about Liverpool's big victory. Sunday.
Thank you, Esther. Over the weekend, thousands of Liverpool fans celebrated the city centre on Sunday as their team paraded the Champions League trophy during an open-top bus parade. Fans set up flares and sang throughout the day as the city of Liverpool was turned red and fireworks fired from the top of the city's iconic Lever building when the team bus drove past masses of supporters. The likes of Mo Salah, the coach Jurgen Klopp, defender Virgil van Dijk and cup final hero Divock Origi all participated in the celebrations, showing off the trophy from the top of the bus. Liverpool beat fellow English side Tottenham Hotspur 2-0 in the Champions League final in Madrid on Saturday. Salah opened the scoring with a penalty early in the game before Origi, who was instrumental in the semi-finals against Barcelona, rounded out the victory with a late second goal in the 87th minute. I call him the last-minute finisher. This was the first Champions League celebration parade in Liverpool since 2005. Liverpool Mayor Joe Anderson estimated in a tweet that 250,000 people attended the parade. And now in boxing, history was made after Andy Ruiz Jr. dethroned British title holder Anthony Joshua, or AJ if you like, with a stunning 7th round stoppage at New York's Madison Square Garden on Saturday to become the first Mexican-American world heavyweight champion. Joshua, previously undefeated and fighting for the first time in the U.S., was defending his IBF, WBA, and WBO titles, but was knocked down 4 times in the fight before the referee stopped the contest in the 7th round. Ruiz had not been given much chance of winning Saturday night. After the fight, Joshua said the defeat was hard to take, but just like the movie Terminator, he said he would be back. And now in women's soccer, the 24th Women's World Cup begins June 7th in France, and 3 teams from Africa qualified: Nigeria, Cameroon, and South Africa. Nigeria plays in Group A as they face host nation France, as well as South Korea and Norway in the group stage. They also played in all 8 Women's World Cups, but only reached the knockout stage once in 1999. Still in the neighborhood, Cameroon, known as the Indomitable Lionesses, are playing in their 2nd World Cup. In the last World Cup appearance in Canada, they reached the round of 16. This year, they hope to go further, but they have fast to fight their way through a fairly balanced Group E, consisting of New Zealand, Canada, and the Netherlands. But last but not least is South Africa, Banyana if you like, the girls in Sesotho. They will play their very first World Cup. And in the NBA Finals, the 2-time defending champions, Golden State Warriors, proved they're still a force as they used a massive 3rd quarter run to overcome a huge deficit and win 109-104 against the Toronto Raptors Sunday night. The 2 teams are now tied in the NBA Finals at 1 game apiece. The resilient Warriors opened the 3rd quarter with an 18-0 run to grab a lead. They would not relinquish. Toronto led by as many as 12 points during a first half in which they used a dominant defensive display to slow down the Warriors. But the visitors, well established as a terrific 3rd quarter team, rediscovered their swagger after the break. Klay Thompson scored a high 25 points for the Golden State before leaving the game in the 4th quarter with a hamstring injury. Steph Curry added 23 points for the Warriors, while the Raptors forward Kawhi Leonard had a game high of 34 points. Former U.S. President Barack Obama and professional golfers Sergio Garcia and Rory McIlroy attended the game. The best-of-7 series, which features the first NBA Finals games that is played outside the States, is now heading to Oakland, California on Wednesday and Friday before returning to Toronto for Game 5 on June 10th. And that wraps our sports for today. Esther, back over to you.
Very well packed sports today. Thank you, Sunday. All right, join Sunday Shomari on Monday for another exciting sports report right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening. Sunday.